Well, hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to OLC TV for some more Total War 3 Kingdoms Real Battle Tactics series, this time having a look at the actions taken by Liu Bei to support his ally/master Yuan Shao in the Guandu campaign against Cao Cao. So, here we are at 200 CE, just prior to Liu Bei joining Yuan Shao. So what had happened to create this situation? Well, number one, Cao Cao had taken control of the Emperor in about 196 CE. This means that he had control of the Emperor for a few years and had been able to use the Emperor to expand his power base. This had really upset Yuan Shao, who up until the point of Cao Cao taking over the Emperor, had been the senior partner in their alliance. Cao Cao had tried to mollify Yuan Shao, but this had not worked, and the two of them were on a path to war. Also, Cao Cao had been at war with Tao Qian previously. Tao Qian had been responsible for the death of Cao Song, Cao Cao's father. His war against Tao Qian had been put on hold by the fact that some of his territories had rebelled against him under the leadership of Liu Bei, who had shown up in the area. Cao Cao very swiftly defeated Liu Bei. Liu Bei fled to Liu Bei, who had taken over Tao Qian's territory because Tao Qian had died of old age. Liu Bei and Liu Bei did not really get along very well. Liu Bei had rebelled, Liu Bei had sought Cao Cao's help, Cao Cao had helped, and Liu Bei had been executed. However, despite Liu Bei nominally then becoming a vassal under Cao Cao, their relationship had been very strained, and they ended up at war with each other. Now, Cao Cao at this stage has an issue. He has a threat of Yuan Shao expected to come south and attack Shu, his capital, and expected to try and take control of the Emperor himself. At the same time, over to his east, he has Liu Bei, who is hostile. Now, Cao Cao had a decision to make. He could either prepare the defences, wait for Yuan Shao and fight Yuan Shao, and risk Liu Bei coming in to aid Yuan Shao from his flank, or take advantage of the fact that Yuan Shao was noted for his indecisiveness and swing east and get rid of the problem of Liu Bei as fast as he possibly could. And that's exactly what he did. In early 200 CE, Cao Cao leads a lightning assault towards Liu Bei's territory, fights him in a battle, and roundly defeats him. This leads to Liu Bei fleeing to Yuan Shao via Yuan Tan, Yuan Shao's son, where he is by all accounts greeted rather warmly. After winning this territory and installing his own governors in the region, Cao Cao returns to Shu to plan his defences at Guandu, Yanford and Borma. Now, later on, Yuan Shao attacks, and I have another video in detail talking about how Cao Cao led his defences at Borma, at Yanford, and I will in the future go into more detail about the other battles that happened around the Guandu campaign. But for this, all you need to know is there is a battle happening just south of the Yellow River, with Yuan Shao trying to cross to threaten Shu, and Cao Cao has set his defences at Guandu. At the same time as this battle is going on, a chap called Liu Bei, who was a former Yellow Turban commander, has launched a rebellion in one of Cao Cao's newly occupied territories of Runan. Now, Runan is quite important because Runan is the Yuan family heartland. It had been a huge base of support for Yuan Shu when Cao Cao was at war with Yuan Shu. And Yuan Shu had, even after he had lost the area to Cao Cao, had employed many bandits and Yellow Turbans in the area because there was another Yellow Turban there was a mass movement to support the Yellow Turbans in that region. So Yuan Shu had employed them to fight Cao Cao, and so there were a lot of people who were hostile to Cao Cao in the area, or at least hostile to the Emperor, and of course Cao Cao was effectively fighting arm of the Emperor at this stage. Now, with all of this going on, Cao Cao could not afford for a major threat to come from Runan that would assault Shu. Yuan Shao knew this. Yuan Shao gave Liu Bei some soldiers. Liu Bei had regained many of his followers who had been beaten by Cao Cao, but he still didn't have a full fighting force. So he borrowed some troops from Yuan Shao, and Yuan Shao sent Liu Bei to support Liu in Runan. Their aim was to combine their forces and raid Shu. That's precisely what they did. However, Cao Cao had left a chap called Cao Ren. Now, Cao Ren does not get much love in the Total War game series, unfortunately, but Cao Ren was effectively the sledgehammer arm of Cao Cao. When diplomacy had failed, he sent in Cao Ren, and Cao Ren was there to guard Shu, and guard it is exactly what he did. When Liu Bei and Liu Bei came with their forces, a mix of Yellow Turbans as well as Yuan Shao's troops and Liu Bei's own personal troops, Cao Ren smashed. What happened to Liu Bei is lost to history. We can assume he died or fled to the hills, just disappeared from history. Liu Bei, however, fled back to Yuan Shao. Now, this was the beginning of Liu Bei starting to get very, very itchy feet. He was unhappy working for Yuan Shao. He'd been sent off to Runan to help foment this rebellion, attack Shu, and it had utterly failed. Cao Cao had not needed to divert any of his attention to it. He trusted the defenses of Cao Ren, and Cao Ren had done what he always does and been very, very damn effective. So Liu Bei decided that he was going to look for another opportunity to take some soldiers, because of course he didn't really have much of a fighting force himself, and find a place where he could build his own power base. So 201 CE comes, and Yuan Shao has been beaten and has gone back north over the Yellow River. At the same time, everyone is expecting Cao Cao to launch a major offensive. Now he has Yuan Shao on the run. So Yuan Shao is looking for a way out. Yuan Shao is looking for another opportunity where he can take some pressure off himself and apply some pressure to Cao Cao to regain some momentum. And he has an old ally and friend, Liu Bei, down in the south, who has, by this stage, around 100,000 men in his army. This is not a small force. Their fighting ability and everything else hasn't really been tested in the same way that these armies further north has, but still he has a good amount of men who could actually be a massive threat to Cao Cao. Because we can assume at this stage, if Yuan Shao is expected to have around 100,000 men, Cao Cao does sort of oversell the difference in troops and says he probably only had about 40,000, but actually we can assume he probably had closer to 100,000 as well. Then an extra 100,000 coming onto the side of Yuan Shao make a massive difference, especially coming to the south and again threatening Shu. Liu Bei also realised. Now, for all of Liu Bei's failings, and for those of you who have watched my gameplay, I'm not particularly keen on the man. However, he was extremely charismatic, and he wasn't a bad military commander. He wasn't great, he certainly wasn't Cao Cao level, but he wasn't bad. And he understood that Liu Bei was a potential ally, and also a potential way out underneath Yuan Shao's grasp. So, he petitioned Yuan Shao for some more men and said, I'm going to go back to Japan, I'm going to foment a rebellion to support you, and I'm going to do this with the support of Liu Bei. We're going to buddy up, we're going to renew this alliance that you have had for so many years, and we're going to take these troops and we're going to threaten Shu again. Cao Cao hears about this and knows that Runan is a problem. Previously, he had understood Runan was a problem and had sent an officer with some men to effectively cleanse the region of the Yuan family. But it still doesn't matter how good this individual was at doing that, and he was very good at doing it. Manchong was extremely effective at killing nobles who supported the Yuan family. You can't kill them all, and if you do kill them, if you don't kill every single member of their family and all of their retainers, you're going to have an army of bandits and yellow turban sporters who are going to come after you. That's exactly what happened. And so despite all of Cao Cao's best efforts, Runan was still a problem. But when he heard that Liu Bei was back down in Runan, and a rebellion was forming, alongside a chap called Guandu, who is misrepresented, I think, in Total War game. He was actually quite an interesting bandit, who supported Liu Bei in this action. Cao Cao said, okay, I'm going to send my officer Cai Yang to go clean this up very, very quick. And so Cai Yang was sent down to fight Liu Bei and Guandu in Runan. However, Cai Yang was defeated, killed, and it looked like Liu Bei and Guandu would have control of Runan, would start to mop up the area, and then would be able to use that as a power base, because this will be an area that then Liu Bei could claim as his own territory, to attack Cao Cao in alliance with Yuan Shao and in alliance with Liu Bei, who embassies had been meeting with, and who there was now growing this idea that Liu Bei and Liu Bei worked together very, very closely. So, what was Cao Cao to do? Everybody still expected him to go north, follow up on his attack against Yuan Shao. However, he knew he had Yuan Shao on the run. He had beaten him. Yuan Shao was by no means completely finished. He still had a fighting force, he still had cities to take, he had his son's armies in support, he had Gao Gan's armies in support. But whatever happened, Cao Cao knew that Yuan Shao didn't have the ability to cross the Yellow River as long as he left some defences in place. So, with Yuan Shao falling back to regain his strength, Cao Cao did what he does best, a lightning attack. So Cao Cao takes the main bulk of his army, swings all the way down to Runan to get rid of Liu Bei again. Liu Bei for Cao Cao is an unfortunate cockroach-like individual, I believe, who no matter how many times he hits him, he still manages to survive and come back and do damage. And that's exactly what Liu Bei has been doing to Cao Cao throughout this entire period now, for a few years. So Cao Cao takes his army, swings south, and attacks Guandu and Liu Bei, and smashes them. Guandu's army is crushed and dissipates. Liu Bei has to flee to his new ally in Liu Bei. Cao Cao takes control of Runan and then installs a series of measures that would effectively prevent the population from rebelling again, because Runan now, in the space of 2 years, had rebelled in major rebellion twice. After that, Cao Cao was free to start raiding and attacking Liu Bei in Liu Bei's territory. As we know as well, Cao Cao would then go up north and complete his conquest of the north as well in later years. So, the aftermath. As you've seen already, Cao Cao had major issues with Runan, and Liu Bei had tried to exploit it twice. Couldn't allow that to happen again. There were also fears that Shu province, which had previously been Tao Qian's and then Liu Bei's province, would rebel as well, and they had no love for Cao Cao. After Cao Song's death, Cao Cao had launched an attack on Shu province and had razed cities to the ground. He had killed peasants, civilians, nobles and soldiers indiscriminately. It did not matter. If you were in that province, you were a target. And they had no love for him. And this is something that Cao Cao himself would regret. Around this time, actually, he would write a letter to Xin Yu, and Xin Yu had reminded him that his previous actions had created this ill favour towards him in Shu province. He shouldn't do the same in Runan. And Cao Cao learned from that. He did, like I say, send Man Chongin, who had been used to pacify Shu province. He'd sent him to go and pacify Runan as well. And he implemented a whole load of essentially taxing measures. He would mean that the population did not have to pay him tax in those provinces whilst they rebuilt themselves. Essentially trying to bribe goodwill from the population, and it worked. He would not have any major rebellion from those provinces at all in the future. He had both used an iron fist to crush rebellion and then later supported it with goodwill gestures. And he put in some pretty effective administrators too. Runan had not been run particularly well by Yuan Shu. Yuan Shu was not very good at management in general, and so actually having some good governors in the area did make a big difference. We know as well that after that, Liu Bei joined Liu Bei's court. Now Liu Bei, for all of his failings, of which there are many of any individual at this time, he was extraordinarily charismatic, and he did command support from members of the nobility, and Liu Bei did not trust him. And so Liu Bei put him on the frontier to guard against Cao Cao, the idea of giving him no further support. We all know how that turned out, however. Liu Bei got involved in the internal politics of Liu Bei's court, sided with one son against another. So when Liu Bei died and the younger son Liu Cong took over, and Cao Cao launched his invasion, Liu Cong surrendered completely and handed over the province to Cao Cao. Liu Bei was caught on the losing side and had to flee south, where he joined with Sun Quan, and there you get the Battle of Red Cliff. Also, we should note as well, this was another one of those situations where we can look at Liu Bei. Liu Bei has gone from the northeast of China, raising a militia force and effectively a mercenary band to fight Yellow Turban, to working with Gongsun Zan, moving south with Gongsun Zan's general Yang Kai to support Cao Qian, to going over to work with Cao Qian, taking over Cao Qian's land, becoming a governor in his own right, fighting wars against Lu Bu, Yuan Shu, and Cao Cao, getting defeated, utterly defeated, going to Yuan Shao, still reforming his armies, with Yuan Shao leading a rebellion in Runan province to attack Cao Cao, being defeated, going back to Yuan Shao, getting more troops, collecting more of his generals who had been destroyed after the battle had been lost. They returned to him at Yuan Shao's camp, going back to Runan, launching another rebellion, to eventually joining Liu Biao's court. Whatever people may think about Liu Bei being either virtuous or traitorous, depending how you look at his life story, he must have had absolute incredible charisma to go from being nothing to something, back to nothing, and back to something again, so often during his life. The mere fact he was able to survive this and come back and build himself new territory in Liu Biao's land before being defeated again, fleeing south, allying with Sun Quan, and then carving out a huge chunk of territory to build up a new power base from which he could launch an attack against Liu Zhang and take over what would become eventually the Empire of Shu. Shu is incredible. So I think for whatever my bias against Liu Bei is, I do have to realize he was an incredible man as well. But ladies and gentlemen, I really hope you have enjoyed this. If you have, please feel free to drop a like and subscribe down below. This was a strategic overview of what was going on around the Battle of Guandu. In the future, we'll be zooming in on the battle itself, because of course with Battle of Borma and Yan Ford, we have actually had a decent look at what happened in the preamble to Guandu now, and with this, the whole strategic map. So next time, the battle itself. Thank you very much for joining me. Bye bye.